Good morning and welcome to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. Today's topic is From Vision to Fruition, What's It Take to Implement Change? And our guests for today's show are Steve Bozzo, who's a Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer with 1-800-Flowers.com. Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Good morning, Sanjog. How are you?
I am just doing fine. Life is beautiful. And how is it treating you?
Oh, it's fantastic. A beautiful day here in New York, and we're loving it.
Great. Now, we also have Harish Ramani, who is the Senior Vice President and Global Chief Information Officer for Constellation Brands. Morning, Harish.
Good morning, Sanjog. How are you?
I am just doing fine. And so life is any different and better for you?
No, wonderful. We're in upstate New York, and we've had a couple of weeks of wonderful sunshine, so no complaints on our end. So
great. So as you go about enjoying your weather and the games of golf that you play, when it comes to the real business, how's business treating you guys? Steve, what's going on?
Well, we're just ending our fiscal year. We ended our fiscal year July 3rd, actually, so just a few days ago, and we're having an excellent year. We're very pleased. Strong holidays and very strong sales, strong average order value. So we're thrilled. We're absolutely thrilled.
Nice. So Harish, when you look at your respective, it's your company in particular, do you think the life there or the way the economy has changed? I mean, of course, there were downturn and now there's uptick a little bit. Did it make much of a difference?
I mean, what they say about the alcohol business, when times are good, people drink, and times are bad, people still drink. So, our higher end business, yeah, we saw a little downtick, but, our core business, we did quite well and continue to do well. So
nice. So, the topic that we picked today, From Vision to Fruition, and what's it take to implement change, the reason we wanted to discuss this is we have tried to, focus on change management related issues, and always the answer comes to us, it depends. And, where the different factors for different people, of course, make a difference in the way they're able to bring about change. So yes, that answer is a non-committal. It depends. However, could there be some predictability that can be injected into it in terms of whether the processes or the way you use a type of leadership, et cetera, in order to make sure that change is not by luck, it's actually successfully delivered by design. So Steve, if you were to look in your current stint that you have with 1-800-Flowers.com and also wherever else you have worked or you've seen other people work and have successfully brought about change, do you see
a pattern for a successful project implementation and change, Sanjog?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I definitely see a pattern. There are some key ingredients we believe that are necessary for any successful change. And it's much less about luck and much, much more about rigor and operational integrity and really just paying attention to details more than anything else. Certainly, having said that, no project is perfect and there are always surprises, and sometimes luck can work in your favor, but it's not something that you can rely upon, obviously. We live in such a fast-paced world. Our chairman likes to say that we, as an enterprise, have to have a tolerance for ambiguity. So things are going to happen. There's no question about it. You need to be prepared for that. So first and foremost, to manage successful change, we believe you need to have a plan, a very detailed plan, and you need to allow for almost every potential eventuality. I think of a data center move that we did recently. We actually, because of a difficult economy, we decided to leave our current hosting site where we had close to 800 servers in 2 locations. Actually 3, we had spread that down to 2. And relocate them into a brand new data center. And we had to do that over the course of about 2 weeks without any interruption to the business at all. So that's one good example where we had to do a fairly rapid change. But in order to do that successfully, and it was very successful, we had to plan every single detail and allow for a lot of eventualities that were potentially unexpected, like equipment failing. So we made sure that we had vendors there prepared to repair the equipment in the event of a failure. Things like that. And it turned out that we were very successful, Sanjog, as an example, with that project, allowing for eventualities that were not necessarily anticipated and having a very detailed plan for everything that we wanted to accomplish.
Now, what Steve just discussed was perhaps it's scoped out change that we're talking about. Harish, if you were to say, I want to change something which is not as easy to be scoped out, but it is perhaps more holistic, more wide type of change. How has that been in terms of experience for you and or anyone else whosoever you've seen working on such a change management issue and successfully delivering? What have you seen as a pattern, surfacing?
Well, there's a great article, and this is probably back in 2000 and early 2002, 2003. Article was Nestle's ERP Odyssey. I don't know if anybody of you have had a chance to read that. And it really talked about their SAP implementation that they did. This is back when they were getting ready. They started in June 2000, trying to get ready for the Y2K. And it really talks about the challenges and the struggles with that project. I learned a lot from that article, and the CIO in that article really kind of talked through, that a success is not by chance. It's really by detailed planning. Change management is critical. I mean, they were really, and similar to what we were doing, going to a more centralized, one single process throughout the enterprise. But bringing people along, it doesn't happen by chance. You have to really, change management is so critical, especially in big ERP type of implementations. And we're going through that ourselves. We put a lot of focus on change management, put a lot of focus on communication and bringing people along first, and that article really, and she talks about difference between an implementation versus an installation, right? So if you just install a software, it's just software. But if you really want to do an implementation, we really have to look it through the lens of change management first.
Now, with respect to the changes that you brought about, do you think there was something that, while we can say we designed it well or we planned it properly and we executed it well, but I think if you were to go back to any of the leaders who we discuss with, they will all say that we, of course, tried our best, but still it did not happen. So would you say there were certain not as obvious things that they missed out on?
I think, again, back to what Steve said, you have to start with a really detailed plan. If things, in a project, in a multi-year project that we've gone through, you go through peaks and valleys and issues that come up that, you didn't necessarily think about, but it's how you manage through those, right? And how you get the people, rally the troops together to solve those problems. I don't think there's a simple answer to say, well, this or, you can point to certain things that went wrong, but I think overall, it's really detailed planning and then execution to that plan. And if failure happens, it's because of its lack of execution most times.
Now, how much do you think, Steve, is the leader sitting at the top can really control execution side?
Well, I think the leader is key in permeating a mindset of getting the job done properly and sticking to the plan and making sure that everybody is motivated throughout the process. Because in the long haul project, obviously, it's very easy to lose motivation. So it's important that the leader, continues to emphasize the sense of urgency on any given project to make sure that we will stay focused, we meet our deliverables, both in terms of time, quality, and cost.
And I think also what I would add to that is to do, especially long-term projects, 3 year plus projects, to celebrate the successes along the way, right?
Absolutely.
To have milestones and celebrate those successes and recognize individuals for the effort and work they're putting in on both on the IT technical side and also on the business side, right? Because we're going through a major transformation of, from a very decentralized organization to a very centralized process-driven organization, right? One common process across our businesses, wine and spirits and beer. So, and when you talk about changing processes, you're really talking about changing the way people do things and the way people work. And that, you're challenging their principles, their beliefs, and the way that they've done things for many years. So really, change management is really critical in bringing folks around and also celebrating the successes. I think it's critical in long-term projects.
Now, is it like, when I teach my 6-year-old daughter how to ride a bike, I hold her seat for a little bit till the time she gets comfortable with it. Now, if you take that example into this change management situation, do you think we cannot, the fact remains is we cannot just lay out the processes and the steps and expect people to really run with them and expect them to be successful in the first shot or even the second or third iteration? So do you think holding that seat of that bicycle till the time they are, ready for going off by themselves is the type of hand-holding that is needed in an organization to bring about a cultural change.
Yeah, I think the analogy of your seat holding would be what I think about is very detailed and rigorous training, right? Investing a lot of time in training, developing a really thorough training plan, and executing against that training plan. So that I would use your analogy of holding the seat as having a very solid training plan in place and executing against that to make sure all the tools and processes available for the business people using the new systems to be successful.
All right, so we just have a new guest who's joined us, Larry Bonfante, who's the CIO with the United States Tennis Association, and is also an accomplished author. Good morning, Larry.
You?
Yeah, Larry, can you hear us?
Yeah, can hear you fine.
Yes, great. So I just wanted to ask you one quick question before we go to the break, is that we basically started with the whole idea of how people are seeing a pattern in the way successful change management is brought about. So have you seen any patterns?
I think there are common traits to organizations that do change management successfully. I also think you need to be flexible to deal with some of the nuances of the change in the organization itself. I don't know if I call them patterns, but I think there are certain commonalities that I've seen in terms of the way you work with your team, the way you communicate change, and the way you engage your team in the change, that I don't know if I would call them commonalities.
All right, so let's take a quick break. Let us come back and see if IT, which has always been seen as an enabler, should be seen as a leader or protagonist in the change management, or they should kind of keep their seats intact or their role intact in terms of always being enabling a business change that is to be brought about. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Up-to-date business and financial news. Call now and get the financial information you need. 866-472-5790. 866-472-5790. The experts are here. Voice America Business Network.
We live in an instant-on world, mobile and connected. To compete, you want data center flexibility so you can adapt quickly to changing business needs while keeping information safe. Introducing Enterprise Cloud Compute Services, HP's solution for managing secure servers, storage, and networks, delivered as a service. Pay only for what you need. Create order out of chaos. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Start shaping your cloud at hp.com.
There are a variety of tools on the market that allow you to remotely work on a client, colleague, or friend's computer. But what solution do you choose? The answer is simple. GoToAssist. Brought to you by Citrix. It's reliable, fast, and secure. And with the exceptional performance, it is no wonder why IT professionals choose GoToAssist. Troubleshoot in seconds. Try GoToAssist free for 30 days. Visit gotoassist.com/CIO. That's gotoassist.com/CIO. Unleash your support potential with GoToAssist. Brought to you by Citrix. It's remote support made easy.
We live in an instant-on world, mobile, connected, and fluid. Competing in this world takes a special kind of workplace technology that adapts to change, that allows seamless and personalized interaction. Introducing Workplace 360, HP's full lifecycle desktop management solution, delivered as a service. User subscriptions allow you to gain financial control and flexibility. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Visit hp.com for answers.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjog Aul.
Welcome back. So, Harish, let's start with you. So, if you were to look at IT, and of course, we have always tried to take pride in being a good enabler. But when it comes to bringing about change, and yes, you can bring about change in your respective organization, you could lead it, but for the most part, the changes are to be brought out in a holistic manner, an organization-wide scale and scope. Would you still think IT would get an opportunity, or would IT want to take a lead role in it?
I think IT could take a lead role in it. We got to start thinking of ourselves as business people, not just IT people. IT is what we do. That's where our disciplines, our training are. But at the end of the day, for me and for my staff, my organization, we're business people first. So for us to be accepted and be credible business people, we need to bring forward ideas and concepts that we see. The good news from an IT perspective, we get a broad umbrella picture of the enterprise, which, if you're in a functional area like finance or HR, you don't necessarily get that broad umbrella view of the enterprise. We have that opportunity, and I think an obligation to take business ideas back to the business to help them use technology to enable success for them.
All right. So Larry, the question for you, what do you think is the best way you feel IT could really play a lead role without making anybody else feel in the business that they are taking over? Because nobody likes to be taken over and or be ruled and or be managed by IT because they think that these guys are supposed to be invisible and or do their thing, but not try to be the boss.
Sure. I've got a number of situations where people on my team are leading major programs here at USTA that absolutely have nothing to do with IT whatsoever, but they're being recognized as the leaders because of their program management expertise and their relationships within the business unit they support. So I think the thing is, if you in IT become part of the fabric of the business, you won't be viewed separately as IT taking over. You'll be viewed as another member of the team who might have the skill set and the experience set to help lead change initiatives. And in that regard, you're just viewed as another person who has the right expertise to help in that regard. So I think the thing is really becoming part of the fabric of the business, that you're not viewed separately and discreetly as IT is coming in to take over.
So Steve, in your view, what's your experience has been with respect to IT taking or preempting a chance to become the leader versus trying to just be an enabler?
I love the way Harish and Larry put that. IT really has to be a part of the business, or I think as Larry put it, as a fabric of the business. And that's exactly right in my view. The key is for IT to enable the business. That's what we're all about. And really, in many respects, to get out of the way of the business. So to as quickly as possible, implement good, solid strategies and programs and technology that make sense for the business so that we enable them, and then quickly get out of the way of the business. I think of a couple of projects we have on the way right now. We're just in the process of rolling out version 7, feature pack 2 of our website commerce platform for e-commerce, and which is, we're in the forefront of that. Very few companies have that at this point. So the whole idea there is to provide a tool for the business that will allow IT to get out of their way. So there's a tool in B7 called Management Center, where they take much, much more control over the technology than they ever did before. Another tool called Precision Marketing, where they can do A/B testing and dynamic chain segments, things like that. So we're very excited about that, but I agree with both what Larry and Harish said, that we really have to be a part of the fabric of the business.
So when we start with the next level where we are trying to say, okay, we did ace a few projects, or we did ace on a few initiatives where change was to be brought about. But then that was like, one flash in the pan. But then most companies struggle with repeating success to the same degree that they had the first time, or maybe, on their nth iteration. So Harish, do you think there is a problem in the way predictability is missing here? Or you think you can never predict that there would be success in all possible change management initiatives?
I don't know if you can. I think back to we had commented earlier. I think there's a couple of there's components that you have to have in place. Then having the components themselves is important, but in it by themselves aren't going to provide you successful implementation, right? Successful change management. I think what's important is the execution of that. I think there's a 2002 McKinsey study that showed that ROI for a project was over 4 times higher when change management was included in the initiative, right? And those type of efforts and execution against change management are critical. If you want a repeatable, I think it goes to, people, process, and technology. You have to have good people. You have to have a solid process, a solid plan, and on a good technology foundation, but then it really comes down to execution. You have to be able to execute.
Now, when you say that we have to be able to execute, now, do you think everyone, the way they created the plan, they envisioned something and then they created a plan around it and then they went through the execution and then there was governance, you got these different pieces that are to be put in place. Is that something which I can put on a portal as a checklist and I do it exactly the way it was supposed to be done and we can ensure success, or there are some other unknowns, if you will? Can you reduce unknowns to the minimum? And if yes, first of all, we have to inventory what are those, I would not say unknowns, but the variables. Can you really control variables to the degree that you want to? Steve?
Well, there are always surprises, Sanjog, no question about that. I would be lying if I said otherwise. But I think, as Harish put it, a good process is everything. It's all about people, process, and tools, but you start and you end with people. If you have the best people, they will automatically follow a fairly rigid process, and it'll be natural to them. One of the things that we've implemented as well is a strong SDLC process, software development delivery life cycle, where there is a checklist. You mentioned that, Sanjog, earlier, that, is there a checklist that you can follow? Absolutely. We do follow checklists, and we check them off. We make sure they're checked off. If not, we go back and, follow up. So a good project plan, a good, strong project management, oversight and governance are absolutely essential. Good, solid communication at every level on a daily basis for a critical project, and certainly more than anything else, transparency. Just keeping the door open and making sure that everybody's communicating in an honest fashion and with integrity. Those are the key, I think, to repeatable process.
Yeah, and I think the other, thought in my head, is really IT projects, it's not a pure science, right? It's a balance of the art and science of doing projects, right?
Yeah.
And keeping that in mind, you have to have strong, and I think Steve talked about this in his data center move, right? You have to, risk management is critical. You have to, there are going to be variables, but how do you plan for variables? We had a similar situation. We moved two of our data centers, consolidated into one, and with a third-party outsourced hosting company. And we were planning for, is it going to rain sideways when we move? Guess what? It rained sideways, and we had tarp over our data center that we were moving from ready to go. We were moving across borders from Canada. What would happen if we got delayed with at the border gate? Well, we did a dry run with a smaller set of development hardware infrastructure and moved that across and kind of went through a dry run of that. So, there will be variables, but how do you get the risk management and think through those scenarios? It's critical from a success perspective.
I remember a similar situation where we had rented air trucks to ship our equipment because it was so critical to make sure it got there intact and on time. One of the trucks got stopped. It didn't pass the weight restriction or something like that. They had to go back. We had a backup truck ready to take all the equipment off of that truck and then ship it so that we stayed on schedule. So, basically being prepared for every eventuality is absolutely critical in a good project plan.
Now, is that like a Star Trek version of change management and execution, or is this something realistic we can really do, that we actually sit down and inventory all possible things that could go wrong and try to create for backup for everything, and there goes out of the window the total ROI of the project, because you might be spending more in creating backups and or contingency planning versus the actual project resources?
I think that's part of the project lifecycle, right? Doing risk management and contingency planning, it's critical.
Absolutely.
I think that should be baked into the ROI component of the project. I mean, we bake it in. We sit down. We had sessions, whiteboard sessions. Think of the craziest thing that could happen, and you just have a brainstorming session, write it down. Then you can start saying, okay, that's on the realm of Star Trek too crazy, right?
Exactly. It seems like we never have the money to do it right, but we always have the money to do it again.
Right.
If you do it right, you'll actually save money. That's been our experience.
Yeah.
Now, all along when we spoke about, and I'd like to stress this point again, is that we've been talking as if every change that you bring about is truly a project. But then if I want to have my kids learn spelling and or behave in front of other guests who come to my home or during a party, that's a change management issue. You're getting them out of their comfort zone and or their fabric that they were made of all along. Isn't that, and also beyond that, as an individual, we go to the organization level, we know this is how an organization works. It works at a fast pace, which is a chaos. and there is no method to the madness yet. No, now that's what if the change that you need to bring about. Can you truly create a project plan around that? Larry.
Well, I think what you're talking about, planning is important, but flexible, you need flexible planning because things are going to change, things are going to pop out of the woodwork, and you need to be able to react to that. But I think what you're referring to is more changing the cultural aspect of how the organization reacts to change. And I think that's critically important. So engaging people throughout the process, having them feel a part of that process, taking a sense of ownership for that process, communicating throughout the process, I think that's the critical thing so that people have buy-in and feel accountable for the outcomes. I think you change the culture first, and then the behaviors follow behind. But you have to change the culture, you have to change expectations, because it is all about the people. And once you get the people on board, then they can react to variables, they can react to things that go south and sideways on you. But you got to change the culture before, all the project plans in the world won't do you any good if people aren't on board and bought into what you're trying to accomplish.
So if Harish, if you were to go and look for these situations where you wanted to bring about change and it is against the very DNA of that organization and you want to get something accomplished, whose sponsorship that you look for in order to bring about change, perhaps they are also part of that fabric, so they would not even want to see that changed. How do you handle that situation?
Well, first of all, there has to be a business value that has to be assigned to that change. I mean, change for the sake of change really doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think you have to first start, what's the business value, right? What's the business driver? What's going to be the benefit of making this change? Because people want to understand if they're going to have to pay a price, what's the value at the end of that price, right? So I think you have to really bring it down into business terms. What's the value of that? Second, once you get your head around that and everybody's in agreement, there is value there. Then it's really about leadership, right? And providing that leadership, that's not leadership and saying, look, we're going to do a change, hold our hands together and march down the path together. And once I think the rank and file see the leadership is aligned, they too will come to that alignment. Now, will there be a pocket of resistance here and there? Sure. Not everybody's going to be happy with the change. But I think there's strong alignment and there's a value at the end of that alignment. I think you're going to position yourself for success.
I would add one thing to that, which is I think you're right. Business value needs to be clear, but also what needs to be clear is that every individual involved in change is personal value. Every human being wants to know what's in it for them. And I think one of the things that we don't do a good enough job of sometimes is really helping people connect the dots between what we're asking them to do and the change effort and what they're going to get out of that change, either as part of a team or individually. I think people buy into change more effectively when they see the value in it personally for them and for their career, for their opportunities. The business value and the corporate value is great, but if they don't see the personal connection, what they're going to get out of the process, you're not going to get as much involvement and alignment as you could.
All right, let's take a quick break. And Steve, when we come back, would like to ask you, how do you manage above and below you and or lead from the middle when you have to bring about change? Because of course, if you want to be the leader and there are people who you report to for other intents and for all intents and purposes, you got to kind of manage them too. And also same time, set examples for the people below you so that you are able to become the Pied Piper and everybody follows. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back and discuss.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
We live in an instant-on world, mobile, connected, and fluid. Competing in this world takes a special kind of workplace technology that adapts to change, that allows seamless and personalized interaction. Introducing Workplace 360, HP's full lifecycle desktop management solution, delivered as a service. User subscriptions allow you to gain financial control and flexibility. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Visit hp.com for answers.
There are a variety of tools on the market that allow you to remotely work on a client, colleague, or friend's computer. But what solution do you choose? The answer is simple. Go to Assist. Brought to you by Citrix. It's reliable, fast, and secure. And with the exceptional performance, it is no wonder why IT professionals choose GoToAssist. Troubleshoot in seconds. Try GoToAssist free for 30 days. Visit gotoassist.com/CIO. That's gotoassist.com/CIO. Unleash your support potential with GoToAssist. Brought to you by Citrix. It's remote support made easy.
We live in an instant-on world, mobile and connected. To compete, you want data center flexibility so you can adapt quickly to changing business needs while keeping information safe. Introducing Enterprise Cloud Compute Services, HP's solution for managing secure servers, storage, and networks, delivered as a service. Pay only for what you need. Create order out of chaos. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Start shaping your cloud at hp.com.
Up-to-date business and financial news. Call now and get the financial information you need. 866-472-5790. 866-472-5790. The experts are here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjog Aul.
Welcome back. So, Steve, leading above you, leading people above you, and leading people below you is an interesting challenge because a couple of things kind of play here. You got to wear a different type of hat where you know that these are the people I report to and I have to manage my boss. And then people under you or who are reporting to you or not even reporting to you in some cases because they might be business unit leaders and or business users where you have an influence management, you still have to lead them. And on top of all that, I'd like to put a curveball there. Do you always have an immunity that if you fail, things are fine, it was a good learning? At least I do not think so. We have that luxury now, and especially when your job is at stake. So with you as an IT leader, what position are you in order to handle it all the way it has been described?
Yeah, I think Sanjog, it's challenging at best, but we do have to manage all of these constituencies, and we have to do so carefully. No question about it. But like what Larry and Harish said earlier, that basically you start with a value proposition on any project or any change. If you don't have a strong business value to what you're doing, you just give it up at that point because you're going to fail. There's no question about it. But once you do have a compelling story and a strong ROI, with that in hand, first and foremost, tell your management on it. So you make sure you have, their endorsement. The last thing you want to do is go and tell to the rank and file, even the business, and find that you don't have the support of your management. But with a strong ROI, that's typically pretty easy to do. With that in hand, then you can go and tell to the rank and file. You can tell to your colleagues and your peers, and then even your staff. And it's very important. I think you're making a great point, Sandra. You need to get your staff on board. They need to understand exactly why we're doing this, what the rationale is, and how powerful it is for the institution to create competitive advantage or whatever. So that's absolutely essential. But finally, and maybe the immunity issue is you absolutely must have a business sponsor. You need someone who's going to be an evangelist, but not someone from IT. That evangelist must come from the business. And they need to drive that project, not only in its early phases as we begin to sell it to everybody, all the constituencies, all the stakeholders in the organization, but even more importantly, throughout the entire project, right to completion. That business sponsor is absolutely critical in terms of their role as an evangelist for the project.
So let's put a situation on the table. You have a person who is very good at bringing about change and successfully executing initiatives. And people who want to be led by this individual are doing it not because they salute the role, but the person who's assuming that role. And given the turnover at all leadership positions is less than 3 years or 4 years at best, how can you make that a repeatable process? Because, of course, you do not fold your business in 4 years. So, Larry, how would you? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think you touched on something very important. You can't just plug different people into a role, and people will have deference to a role, but they have respect for the person in that role. So you can't just plug anybody generically into a role and expect to have a repeatable, successful change, because it's all about influence, it's all about relationship management, and it's all about the person who's leading that change initiative being a role model for the change that they want to see in the organization. So I don't think you can do that. I think what you have to do is make sure that the leaders you have certain qualities and certain characteristics that resonate with their audience and with the people they're trying to lead. So I don't think you can just do musical chairs and just plug any old person into an office and think you're going to have a repeatable success. I think that's foolhardy at best.
So, Harish, I'd like to ask you, if you see a person really working well in a role, perhaps it could be you, and people like to be led by you, how do you get them to agree to start paying respect and or follow somebody who may be your successor if they've not seen them in action? Because if they're following a person, there has to be some they should like them and trust them, and that will not happen till the time they see them on the job.
I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, it comes down to individual style and personalities. And one would hope, right, if I'm anointing somebody or picking somebody as my successor, the same confidence people had in me and leading the organization would also have the same confidence saying, look, he's going to make the right choice for the organization and for the company. And is that the question?
No, actually, I am asking this question now, while it is a tough one, but then the goal here was to make it repeatable. And if the repetition or the success of, or predictable success of any such initiative that is brought about by Harish cannot be transferred over to another individual, then organization loses. Because I'm sure you might not retire at your existing organization as you did not in your previous stints. So it should not be a people-dependent success. It should be more, maybe not process, but something else has to step in.
I don't think you can decouple the individual or the person from a success of a project. I mean, you need people to make projects successful. You need leadership to make projects successful. So while you can have strong processes, you can have very detailed project plan, I think if you don't have the right leadership, you won't have the right level of execution.
So that's where exactly the point is. And I would like to ask you, Steve, suppose I stand outside of the situation and see this organization did a great job in executing this type of change management, and now the people changed, and now they're doing a lousy job at best. So how do I see this organization not mature enough? That's how we label them. Why do we label them that way? Because it is so people dependent. Is it a bad thing? And if it is a bad thing, then what else should be there so that no matter which leadership comes, as long as they have the basic traits and credentials and are able to lead with the right style, the fact that the rest of the organization has to have to like them and trust them should be a part of the equation, but not the only set of variables which should, determine whether an initiative is going to be successful or not.
Yeah, Sanjog, I think you're exactly right. I mean, successful change takes place as a result of very good people, but good process and good tools as well. All three ingredients are essential. If any one of that triangle is weak, the other pieces have to make up for it. And invariably that will happen at different phases during a project, and you may lose people, as you mentioned. If those people, really critical people to a given project, leave, we need to make up for that in the interim with good, strong process and good, strong tools, and ultimately with some bench strength. People that have been trained take place of that person who's left. So leadership is, I think, the most important thing, but it's not the only important thing. There are other important ingredients as well that'll allow it to be sustainable with respect to our success as we move forward, even the eventuality of people leaving. So I think that's the key: good, strong process and good, strong tools in the absence of some people for some brief period of time.
I would just comment that I started talking about culture before. If you've developed a culture in an organization, people are critical, but if you have the right kind of culture and you're bringing in the right kind of people, you can make changes over time and still have, sustainable success, because the culture will sustain it, only bringing people into that culture who would play well in that culture. But there's no way you can separate organizational success from people, because the people are what make the organization.
And see, okay, let's take to the next level, and we'll, of course, call the break and come back and discuss. But I want to pose this question. If we are trying to bring about a change, one is, of course, to bring the predictability, and so that the command or the control is moved or the baton is handed over to the next leader. But at the same time, the rest of the organization sometimes could benefit by not really be that hung up on what the end goal is going to be. Let's go through the journey and end goal will happen as a result. While this is prescribed as a recipe for success, but is it truly a good recipe? Is it realistic for some people to say, okay, I will join you blindsided or with blinders on and do not know where I'm going, but I'm going to definitely try to contribute towards the journey. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
We live in an instant-on world, mobile and connected. To compete, you want data center flexibility, so you can adapt quickly to changing business needs while keeping information safe. Introducing Enterprise Cloud Compute Services, HP's solution for managing secure servers, storage, and networks, delivered as a service. Pay only for what you need. Create order out of chaos. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Start shaping your cloud at hp.com.
There are a variety of tools on the market that allow you to remotely work on a client, colleague, or friend's computer. But what solution do you choose? The answer is simple. Go to Assist. Brought to you by Citrix. It's reliable, fast, and secure. And with the exceptional performance, it is no wonder why IT professionals choose GoToAssist. Troubleshoot in seconds. Try GoToAssist free for 30 days. Visit gotoassist.com/CIO. That's gotoassist.com/CIO. Unleash your support potential with GoToAssist. Brought to you by Citrix. It's remote support made easy.
We live in an instant-on world, mobile, connected, and fluid. Competing in this world takes a special kind of workplace technology that adapts to change, that allows seamless and personalized interaction. Introducing Workplace 360, HP's full lifecycle desktop management solution, delivered as a service. User subscriptions allow you to gain financial control and flexibility. The instant-on enterprise is here. Are you ready? Visit hp.com for answers.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to CIO Talk Radio. To learn more about the show, please visit www.ciotalkradio.com. If you have a question or comment, call toll-free 1-866-472-5790. Now back to the show. Here's Sanjog Aul.
Welcome back. So let's start with you, Steve. Is it possible for any leader to say, while I would like to get these results, but frankly, results don't matter as we go about pursuing those results, so that you do not get too focused on it, and that way you start trying very hard towards achieving those results. That might cause you to become more anxious and cause more mistakes. Is that a good way to loosen up and get people to be themselves and deliver?
I would argue that's probably not the best recipe for success, Sanjog. I think it's imperative that we be transparent, and in that transparency, we very clearly articulate our goals and objectives of any given project. And more than that there be very clear accountability and responsibility. And even right down to the milestone, that we have measurable, quantifiable milestones that somebody is accountable for, and that is very clear in terms of that accountability. And most important of all, that everybody buys into and agrees to the business value of completing that milestone and that project on time, on budget, and of the highest quality. So I would argue that that kind of an approach is much, much better than not being as clear with respect to the goals and objectives.
Now let's switch gears there. So you mentioned about the predictability that you need in a project execution. How about I want to change the organizational culture? Do you really want to be as, picky about what this person does at what hour of the day?
I like to give, my team latitude, no question. Especially in terms of work-life balance, sometimes they can accomplish more at home. They may have a family situation where it's better for them to work at home. So we're not real rigid about that. What we are rigid about is accomplishing the objective. We try to give them as much latitude as they need with respect to that, and they take accountability. We empower them, and that works best for us, Sanjog.
Absolutely. You have to empower your people. I mean, if you're babysitting your people, either you're a terrible manager or you've hired the wrong people.
Exactly.
You've got to empower the people. You got to set a very clear vision of what success looks like and, why we want to get there. But then you got to unleash their creative powers to get there. You can't be telling them or spoon feeding them every inch of the way as to how to get there.
Harish,
and I
when
think
go ahead.
Want to be successful, right? They want to come in, they want to make a difference, right? That's what you want to tap into. And, I think you have the appropriate guardrails in place or people know what to do, what not to do. But I think between those guardrails, I think you have to give them the flexibility and the ownership to do what they need to do to execute. So.
Do you think you can let go of those guardrails just to try it out to see what better can these people do? Because we, I think, come traditionally from a command and control structure, and it's tough for us to let go. Do you think people may not innovate and get it done faster, cheaper, better than what you expect if you were to lower the guardrails? Harish?
You've got to give them the opportunity to innovate. You've got to create an environment and a culture where risk-taking is rewarded, where when they try something that doesn't work the first time, it's not viewed as a failure, but it's viewed as a learning experience that they could leverage in the future. So you've got to create a culture where people feel safe to take risks, take innovative steps, and use their creativity. Command and control is absolutely, in my opinion, a recipe for failure moving forward in any endeavor in OSIT.
Yep.
So, Harish, what about the size of the initiative? Do you think when people say we have to bring about change, and again, let's keep the project mindset aside, a change that you want to bring in an organization, how do you size something up to say this is just the right bite size that we should chew and make the best use of this and then take the next bite?
I think, you again, from a planning perspective, you have to put it into the manageable chunks, right? And you also have to be smart enough to understand what are the core capabilities and competencies of your organization, and where do you need to go outside to bring in that expertise and that talent. I think that's also an important trait from a leadership perspective, knowing what you do well and also knowing what you don't do well, right? Because like all of us know in the technology area, we can't be experts in every single field, every single component. We do have to go outside and get the right vendors and the right partners in place to help us execute. But it's a combination of both of those.
So, Steve, if you were to be given a rowboat and you got 50 people who are rowing it, you cannot have one person or 3 people rowing differently than from the rest 48. So as you keep getting more and more people into an organization or people exit, you got to have these people come hit the ground rowing it the same way that you want the same way the rest of them are rowing at that time. How about creating a playbook for your repeatable process, not again for just project management, but for change initiatives? Is that realistic?
It is realistic, and it's also essential. I mean, there's no other recipe for success that I'm aware of other than having a playbook and having a fairly rigid set of guidelines that we all can follow. And a checklist, as you mentioned earlier, Sanjog, the SDLC process that we follow is one that's absolutely essential. Rigid in the sense that there are deliverables, there are tasks that have to be accomplished, but on the same token, giving the individual the freedom to get it done the way they want to get it done. The work-life balance, as I mentioned earlier, is very important as well. That gives them the freedom to do what they need to do to get the job done, and that's absolutely essential. I think Larry said it earlier, we need to empower our staff. You can't do that by monitoring their every move. So, we get people rolling in the same direction by setting up strong leaders and putting the right processes in place that are easy to follow.
Now, when we look at the weakest links, I would not really call it weakest link, but just for the sake of argument, the rest of the business versus IT, we are seen as people from different planet, structured differently, wired differently, think differently, et cetera, et cetera. So do you think when you want to bring organization-wide change, are we the ones who could pose that weakest link issue? Or is there a way to avoid that, given the way we think and act and process things differently? Harish, why don't you take that?
I don't know if I like the term weakest link. I mean, from an IT perspective, what we do, we're very process driven, very structured in how we need to get things done. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing even on the business side, right? I mean, there are big business initiatives, big business projects. There's a whole new concept and a whole new area now of project management in the business, right? Maybe not as detailed and rigorous as IT projects, but that concept of project management, the SDLC for business projects, I think if you see leading companies, they're adopting having PMO type of organization in the business. So I think the business is learning from, a structured process why it's important to do IT projects, but how it can benefit business projects, right? So,
all right.
So I don't think we're a weakest link. I think we provide some different ways of executing projects, well, either business or IT, but I think process is important and it's being recognized as an important component.
All right. So each of you, 15 seconds each, tell the top 3 qualities that a leadership we should have in IT who could successfully lead repeatable successes when you want to bring about change. Larry, let's start with you.
I would say the person has to be a relationship manager. The person has to be an excellent communicator. And the person has to be somebody who could inspire people to want to rally around a common vision.
Steve.
Transparency, absolutely essential. Communication skills, Larry mentioned, no question about it, but also compassion, the ability to really feel and sense the strong sense of empathy with all of their staff and everybody that they're working with, all of their stakeholders.
Finally, Harish.
I've nothing much to different add. I would agree. Number 1 would be communication skills, 2 leadership skills, and 3 adaptability would be critical for me.
Great. On behalf of the show and listeners, thank you so much, Steve, Larry, and Harish. I guess what we learned from this today is that there is no, of course, secret sauce, but then if you have the right ingredients, you can at least have a pretty good probability of success. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Thanks.
If you have any questions, please send us to views@ciotalkradio.com. That is views@ciotalkradio.com. Thank you again for listening to CIO Talk Radio. This is Sanjog Aul, your talk show host. Till next week, take care and God bless.